For more than a decade, two men saw Hitler more often than anyone else: Hans Baur, his pilot, and Erich Kempka, his chauffeur. They were the silent witnesses to his private world. In April 1945, Baur offered him one last chance to escape. Hitler refused. Days later, Kempka delivered the fuel that would burn his body. When the war ended, these two men faced a question only they could answer. What do you do after driving or flying history's most notorious dictator? While generals and ministers fought for his attention in crowded meetings, Hans Baur and Erich Kempka saw Hitler in his most unguarded moments, on long flights, in the back of a car, when his guard was down. Hans Baur, a World War I ace with 6 confirmed victories, became Hitler's personal pilot after flying commercially for Lufthansa. Erich Kempka began as a reserve driver but rose to run Hitler's entire motor fleet. In 1933, Hitler hand-picked Baur as his official pilot. To give him the authority needed to manage Hitler's security, Himmler commissioned him as an SS Standartenführer that October. The title reflected Hitler's trust and gave Baur the rank to run his growing aviation unit. By the war's end, he commanded a fleet of 40 aircraft, from lumbering Junkers transports to sleek Focke-Wulfs. In 1936, Hitler chose Kempka to lead his entire motor fleet. He managed the black Mercedes limousines and coordinated the tight security around every trip. The SS Begleitkommando worked under his orders, ensuring Hitler's safety on the road. Their jobs placed them in unusually intimate settings with Hitler. Baur flew him across Germany during political campaigns, spending hours alone with him in the cockpit. On the road, Hitler often rode up front beside Kempka, with only a valet in the back. In these settings, both men overheard private conversations and saw behavior that contradicted Hitler's public image. His motorcades were always trailed by cars carrying security, adjutants, doctors, press, and stenographers. From this vantage point, they built an unfiltered picture of Hitler's true personality. Unlike ministers who saw him in meetings or generals in war councils, Baur and Kempka watched him in everyday moments. Hitler rewarded their loyalty. Baur received a personal Mercedes for his 40th birthday, and Kempka the SS Honor Sword, gifts that elevated them beyond ordinary staff. This extraordinary access would soon become both their greatest asset and their most dangerous liability. By April 1945, their years of silent observation would thrust them into the center of history's final act. In April 1945, as Soviet artillery shook Berlin, Hans Baur made one last, desperate proposal. He had spotted a makeshift airstrip in the Tiergarten near the Brandenburg Gate, just enough space for a Fiesler Fi-156 Stork to take off. Days earlier, aviator Hanna Reich had proved it could be done, landing the same aircraft in that very spot on April 26th. The little Stoll plane needed barely any runway and could weave through the shattered city where normal escape routes were gone. Hitler refused. Even as the Red Army closed in on the Reichschancellery, he would not abandon Berlin. Both men stayed in the Führer bunker during those last weeks, clinging to their duties as the regime collapsed above them. The underground complex had become a claustrophobic refuge, crammed with aides, officers, and staff clinging to scraps of hope. Baur still held his title as Hitler's pilot. Kempka kept managing transport, even though there were no vehicles left to move. Baur's proposal marked a breaking point in his working relationship with Hitler. He had even suggested a Ju-390, a massive long-range transport that offered better odds than the fragile Stork. Hitler had never flown in one, and he refused. On April 29th, in their final conversation, he bid farewell to Baur and fellow pilot Georg Betz. It was the end of more than a decade of trust in Baur's judgment. Within days, the improvised Tiergarten strip was useless, chewed apart by Soviet fire and debris. The bunker grew more frantic as Hitler made his last decisions. Baur and Kempka saw him slip further from reality, still barking orders to armies that no longer existed while the Soviets closed in overhead. They saw the rages at subordinates and the physical decline. Kempka's most grim assignment came from Otto Günscher, Hitler's adjutant: collect the fuel to burn Hitler and Eva Braun's bodies. Kempka and his men rounded up 8 to 10 army petrol cans, around 180 to 200 liters in all, and carried them to the bunker's emergency exit. He then knew why it was needed. After Hitler's death on April 30th, both men tried to flee the bunker by different routes. Baur was shot in both legs during his breakout and quickly captured by the Soviets. His wounds were so severe that prison doctors amputated his right leg in Poznan on June 10, 1945. Kempka slipped out on May 1st, made his way to Wittenberg, and eventually reached Berchtesgaden in the south of Germany, where US troops caught him on June 20th. Because they were so close to Hitler in his last days, both men became top targets for Allied interrogators. Their captures would reveal just how differently the Soviets and Americans valued their testimonies. When Hans Baur awoke in a Soviet prison hospital, his right leg gone, he realized that being Hitler's pilot had made him one of Stalin's most wanted prisoners. To the Soviets, he was no mere aviator. They suspected he might have helped Hitler escape from Berlin or even flown looted treasures to safety, including the fabled Amber Room. His skill in the air and his closeness to Hitler made him a high-priority target for Soviet intelligence, who believed he carried secrets worth prying loose. Captured by US forces, Kempka spent time in ordinary POW detention until October 1947. His value to the Americans lay in what he had seen in the bunker, not in any role as a war criminal. Interrogators pressed him mainly about Hitler's final days and the moments after his death, rather than chasing wider accusations against transportation staff. The gap in their treatment revealed the very different priorities of the Allied powers. Baur would spend 10 years in Soviet hands. Their interrogations were long, aimed at uncovering hidden crimes, escape plans, and the movements of high-ranking Nazis. To them, his years as Hitler's pilot made him more than an observer. It made him a potential accomplice with knowledge worth mining. For the Americans, Kempka's value was clear. He was the first captured witness who could confirm Hitler's death. Their priority was piecing together the last days of the regime, not prosecuting drivers. Years later, in an interview with James O'Donnell, Kempka admitted he sometimes told interrogators what they wanted to hear simply to protect himself, a glimpse into the pressure these men faced under questioning. Even so, US investigators often quoted his vivid, if not always reliable, accounts of bunker life and Hitler's last hours. Life in Soviet prisons and labor camps brought Baur far more hardship than the interrogations alone. His missing leg made hard labor punishing, and adapting to camp routines was a daily struggle. As the years passed with no sign of release, the uncertainty gnawed at him. The Soviets moved him from one facility to another, a constant reshuffling that kept him off balance and perhaps more willing to talk. When they were finally released, a new battle began, life in a world that would forever see them through the shadows of Hitler's inner circle. In 1957, after 10 years in Soviet prisons, Hans Baur returned to Germany, only to find himself unemployable. His long service to Hitler overshadowed his skill as an aviator. No airline or company would touch the former pilot of the Third Reich. The missing leg was a visible reminder of his past, but the real obstacle was the stigma. In aviation, his expertise meant nothing. The shadow of Hitler meant everything. Kempka faced similar challenges after his release from American custody in October 1947. He returned to a Germany that had undergone denazification and wanted to forget its Nazi past. Former SS members like Kempka encountered hostility from neighbors and potential employers who knew about their wartime service. Both men discovered that their proximity to Hitler, which had once provided them with status and privileges, now marked them as social outcasts in post-war society. Their cases stirred a lingering question: guilt or duty? Were they simply a pilot and a driver doing their jobs, or did service that close to Hitler make them complicit? Neither faced a war crimes trial. Financial necessity forced both men to write memoirs about their experiences with Hitler. Baur published Ich flog die Mächtigen der Erde, later expanded as Mit Mächtigen zwischen Himmel und Erde. Kempka's first memoir appeared in 1951 under the title Ich habe Adolf Hitler verbrannt, before its 1975 reissue as Die letzten Tage mit Adolf Hitler. For both, the books were a way to earn a living and to put their own version of events into print. The public reception of their books sparked considerable controversy among historians and readers. Critics questioned the reliability of their memoirs and accused them of attempting to sanitize their roles in the Nazi regime. Some viewed the memoirs as opportunistic attempts to profit from their association with Hitler. Their greatest struggle was identity. Their only place in history came from serving Hitler, flying him, driving him. How do you define yourself when your life's most notable work is transporting a dictator? That question shadowed them for the rest of their lives. Decades later, in 2008, Kempka's name surfaced in an unlikely place: the US military trial of Salim Hamdan, Osama bin Laden's driver. Defense lawyers pointed to Kempka as proof that chauffeurs aren't automatically war criminals. In the end, Erich Kempka and Hans Baur gave history a rare, first-hand testimony of the final moments of Hitler, but left them carrying consequences that lasted long after the war, far beyond the cockpits and car seats where their service began. While they did not shape Hitler's decisions, their lives were shaped entirely by them, and when the world they had served collapsed, they learned a truth as stark as any battlefield: proximity to power can be both a privilege and a lifelong burden. If you'd like to explore the fates of others who lived in Hitler's shadow, you may want to watch what happened to Hitler's bodyguards after World War II. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more World War II content. And we'll see you in the next one.